what's up everybody? I want to show you some instruments I made from samples of my electric guitar. I took my Fender Mustang guitar and plugged it into my Fender Deluxe tube amplifier, put a little of the spring reverb on it, and created these instruments, and one of them sounds like this. And for this sound I did like a bunch of palm mutes on different notes. So if we open this thing up, you'll see that we're triggering all these different sounds here. This is the sample file on the bottom, and each one of these rows gives us a different sample. Now, one of the things and the problems of sampling something like a guitar is that every time you pluck a string, it sounds slightly different. It's never exactly the same. So when you just hit one note over and over again, it sounds like very robotic. So I set up this little trick here where I put these different instances of those notes and I put them on this chain selector. So they're spread out across from 0 to 127. And then I made an LFO, which basically is setting up any random spot on this chain selector at any given time. So when I play a note, I get a different one every time. Let me hit on the repeat thing on push here. Now if I turn this off, you're going to hear the same note over and over again. And it starts to sound really robotic. Now let me put this back on. This, I think, sounds much more human. So every time you play something on this thing, you're going to get it coming out different. It'll never sound the same, and that's kind of the way it works on an electric guitar. So let me close down the sample stuff here. And if we look, we have control over the timbre here, and we can find that under the pitch tab, and that's the zone shifter. So essentially we are just shifting around which keys play over which samples play over which keys. So if I am to play with my timbre, I'm triggering different samples which wind up getting stretched differently, and we get this change in sound. So it's kind of cool, I think. We have a delay that's can be kind of fun to fool around with because we can get some more like complicated rhythms. Like I'm going to put on repeat mode here on the push and just play this 8th note pattern, but as I turn in my delay, get something a little more complicated. So that I'm playing with the timbre too. Now I'll turn that off. We have some reverb, and you can play around with the reverb time. You have something really deep and lush like that, or we can go a little more subtle, which is where I had it before. No reverb. More reverb. Okay, so let's talk about subtle fuzz here. And subtle fuzz is a really simple device, but I think it sounds really nice. It's the dynamic tube, which is a device that's meant to mimic the sounds of different kinds of tubes. And I thought it was cool to put that in there because we are playing through a tube amplifier. So we're like real and virtual tube together at last. No more fighting over which is better. It's a subtle thing, but I like what it does to the sound quite a bit. And the last thing I added here was the speaker cabinet. So this will make this amplified guitar sound like it's coming out of an amplifier again. So again, I'm kind of doing the whole double amplifier by doing analog and digital together because the sample came out of an amplifier. When we put these two together, it gives the sound some nice character. But it's pretty subtle. So that's one of them. This one is monophonic right now, so I'm only going to hear one note at a time. I did that because if you wanted to do like some sort of fast plucking, it would sound a little more natural. because on the next one over here, we have a polyphonic version of the same thing, where I can now play chords. And this one's pretty nice, I think. But the reason why I made the separate one is because if you want to do these fast plucks, they sort of overlap each other. So I thought it was better to make it separate. On this one, the only real difference is that we have a release control instead of the timbre, because on the polyphonic one, I think the release makes a bigger difference. This is no release, right? You can kind of tailor how long you want these things to sound. Like if I want to maybe just hold the chords, I can just hold them and keep a low release. These little like plucky sounds that just come in and out. Or, you know, you might just want them to all last the whole length of the sample, and you turn it up somewhere around here. And you get something like that. Really like this one, I think. This is a cool sound. The next one is the same exact thing, except the samples are now reversed. And I think that makes a pretty sound and speaks for itself. The next thing I want to show you is a kind of an entirely different instrument, and this time I strummed some chords. Let's pitch it up. I played everything in the key of G major, and you'll see that this is the drum rack that everything's housed in. We start with the root, and then we get like a different chopped version of that we can play around with here. I have G major 7, the major 7th, and then we go just through the scale really. This is the 2 chord, which would be the A minor. That's minor, of course. This is the 3 chord, B minor. Then we get to the C, which is the 4. And there's some kind of cool things you can do with the 4 chord. I always like a major 7. I think it's fun on the 4th chord. And then also the minor I put in there, because it sounds kind of pretty. Then we go to the 5 chord, which is a D major. We got a little chop of that. And then finally E minor. And if you're wondering where the diminished F sharp would be, it's not there, because I wanted to throw in like some of these nice C chords and this G major 7. Now, you don't have to always play in G major though. I have a transpose knob over here, and we can start moving this around. And I really love the way a slowed down guitar sounds. I just think that sounds nice. Put a little delay on it. And set up much like the last few racks. We can put that subtle fuzz. Make it sound like it's coming out of a speaker, even though it already is. And those are the sounds. I think they're pretty cool and fun, and they're worthy of being the 100th free download. So I know a lot of you guys have been following this for a while, and that's awesome, and I'm really happy that it's come this far. So I hope you guys enjoy this. Have fun with it, and send any songs you make using these sounds. I'd love to hear them.